Captain Li Bin stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the morning sun rise over the Pacific Ocean. The water was calm and blue, stretching as far as he could see. Below the surface, millions of people lived in underwater cities that glowed, like stars in the deep. It was a peaceful morning, just like any other. Then the sky cracked open. Massive ships appeared above the ocean, each one the size of a mountain. They moved without sound, casting huge shadows on the water below. Li Bin had never seen anything like them. The ships looked alive, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to breathe. "Sir, we're getting signals from all over the world," said his communications officer. "These ships are appearing above every major ocean." Li Bin grabbed his radio. "This is Captain Li Bin of the Pacific Defense Fleet. All units, battle stations. This is not a drill." Dr. Park Yuna was studying fish samples in her underwater lab when the alarm started ringing. She looked up through the thick glass windows and saw the shadow passing overhead. The sea creatures around her lab were acting strange, swimming in circles and making sounds she had never heard before. Her phone rang. It was Admiral Kim Tae, the commander of all Earth's naval forces. "Yuna, we need you topside right now," he said. "The aliens want to talk and you're our best xenobiologist." "Aliens?" Yuna asked, but the line was already dead. 2 hours later, Yuna found herself on a small boat approaching one of the alien ships. The vessel was even more impressive up close. It looked like it was made of living coral and metal mixed together. Strange lights pulsed along its surface like a heartbeat. A section of the ship opened like a flower blooming. Water flowed out, and with it came the aliens. Yuna gasped. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The aliens looked like giant whales, but they floated in the air above the water. Their skin was pale blue and covered in patterns that glowed softly. They had large, intelligent eyes that seemed ancient and sad. One of them spoke, and somehow Yuna could understand the words in her mind. "Greetings, land dwellers. We are the Aquari Collective. We come seeking what you have in abundance." "What do you want?" Yuna asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Your oceans," the alien replied simply. "Our homeworld is dying. Poison from the stars has killed our seas. We have traveled far to find new waters to call home." The alien showed Yuna images in her mind. She saw a beautiful planet covered in purple oceans, then watched as those same oceans turned black and lifeless. Billions of the whale-like creatures floating dead in toxic water. "We offer trade," the alien continued. "We will give you technology beyond your dreams, medicine that can cure any disease, ships that can travel between stars. All we ask is for your oceans." Yuna felt sorry for them, but something felt wrong. What would happen to our sea life, to our underwater cities? The alien was quiet for a long moment. They would need to adapt or relocate. That evening, Yuna met with Admiral Kim Tae and the other world leaders in an emergency council. She told them everything the aliens had shown her. "They seem desperate," she said, "but I don't think they're telling us everything." Admiral Kim Tae was an old man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had spent his whole life protecting Earth's oceans. "What aren't they telling us?" "I want to go aboard their ship," Yuna said, "to see their technology up close, to understand what they really need." 3 days later, Yuna was inside an alien bioship. The walls were alive, pulsing with soft light. The air was thick and humid, like being inside a living lung. The aliens showed her their technology with pride. "Our ships grow like plants," explained the alien leader, who called himself the Deep Speaker. "We do not build machines, we cultivate them." Yuna was amazed by what she saw. The aliens could grow computers from living tissue. Their weapons were living creatures that fired energy blasts. Their entire civilization was based on biology instead of metal and circuits. But then she saw something that made her blood run cold. In a sealed chamber, the aliens were testing their terraforming process. They had taken a sample of Earth's seawater and were changing it. Yuna watched as the clear blue water turned into a thick, acidic soup. Small earthfish died instantly when placed in the altered water. "This is what our oceans need to become," the deep speaker explained. The chemistry must change to support our young. But this would kill everything, Una whispered. Everything that cannot adapt, the alien agreed as if this was not important. Una realized the horrible truth. The aliens didn't just want Earth's oceans. They wanted to change them into something that would kill every living thing that currently lived there. All the fish, all the whales, all the underwater cities where humans lived would die. She pretended to be interested and asked to see more. The aliens, thinking she was convinced, showed her their real plan. They would release special organisms into Earth's oceans that would slowly change the water chemistry. It would take only weeks to kill everything and months to complete the transformation. When do you plan to start? Una asked, trying to sound excited instead of horrified. Soon, the deep speaker said. We have already chosen the test site. Your people have 3 days to consider our offer. If they refuse, we will begin the process anyway. We cannot wait longer. Our young are dying. Una was escorted back to her boat with her mind racing. She had to warn everyone. The aliens weren't offering a trade. They were giving an ultimatum. That night she met with Admiral Kim Tae in his secure command center beneath the ocean. They're going to kill everything, she told him. Even if we agree to their deal, they'll destroy our marine life and flood our coastal cities with toxic water. Admiral Kim Tae nodded grimly. I was afraid of that. How long do we have? 3 days before they start the process at a test site. I think they're planning to use the Mariana Trench. The Admiral walked to a large window that looked out into the deep ocean. Schools of fish swam past, unaware that their world was about to change forever. Then it's time, he said quietly. Activate Protocol Deep Storm. What's Protocol Deep Storm? Una asked. Admiral Kim Tae turned to face her, and she saw something fierce and determined in his old eyes. Something we've been preparing for since we first detected unknown ships in our outer solar system 5 years ago. The aliens think we're just simple land dwellers who happen to live near water. He smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. They're about to learn that humans are the most dangerous predators these oceans have ever seen. Outside the window, the peaceful fish continued swimming, but deep in the ocean trenches something was stirring. Humanity's secret was about to be revealed. The Mariana Trench had always been Earth's deepest, darkest place. Now it was becoming something else entirely. Captain Lee Bin watched from his submarine as the water around the trench began to bubble and change color. The Aquari had kept their promise. They were starting their test. Temperature rising rapidly, reported his sonar officer. The water is turning acidic. Everything down there is dying. Lee Bin clenched his fists as he watched fish float to the surface, their bodies twisted and burned by the alien chemicals. The Aquari bioship hovered above the test site like a giant jellyfish, releasing more of their terraforming organisms into the water. Sir, we're getting reports from around the world, his communications officer said. Coastal cities are starting. Evacuation procedures. The contaminated water is spreading faster than expected. Lee Bin activated his secure radio. Admiral Kim Tae, this is Captain Lee Bin. The test site is active. Request permission to engage. Permission granted, came the reply. Operation Deep Storm is now active. Show them what we've been building down here. Lee Bin smiled grimly. All units, this is Shark Leader, time to surface. Let's introduce our guest to Earth's real Navy. Around the Pacific Ocean, the seafloor began to move. What the aliens had thought were natural underwater mountains started to rise. Massive structures emerged from the deep, revealing themselves as hidden military bases. The peaceful underwater cities transformed as their outer shells fell away, showing weapons and armor underneath. Commander Jiang Wu felt his heart racing as his mech unit received the activation signal. For 5 years, he had trained for this moment. The Kraken unit was humanity's most secret weapon, and now it was time to use it. Kraken 1 to Kraken team, he said into his helmet radio. Begin ascent, let's go fishing. His mech rose from its hiding place in an ocean trench. The machine was enormous, standing 200 meters tall, but it moved through the water like a real sea creature. Its arms could stretch and bend like an octopus, and its outer skin could change color to match the surroundings. The other Kraken mechs followed him up from the deep. There were 12 of them in total, each one designed to fight in the crushing depths of the ocean. They had been waiting in the deepest trenches for years, disguised as underwater volcanoes. The HFY bioship detected them first. Jiang Wu watched as the alien vessel began to pulse with warning colors. It was trying to communicate with the other alien ships, but humanity had been jamming their signals for the past hour. "Target locked," Jiang Wu said. Kraken 1 engaging, his mech's arm stretched out like a real octopus tentacle, but instead of suckers, it had plasma cannons. The energy blasts hit the bioship's hull, burning through its living armor. The alien vessel screamed, actually screamed, as if it was in pain. "They're alive," whispered his co-pilot. "The ships are actually alive. Then we'll have to kill them," Jiang Wu replied, firing again. Captain Omina had spent the last 3 days moving her submarine fleet into position. Her ships were special, designed to be invisible to both human and alien sensors. They looked like large whales from the outside, complete with fake breathing and heart sounds. "Go Squadron, this is Phantom Leader," she whispered into her radio. "Begin silent running. Hunt mode active." Her submarines moved through the water without making a sound. The HFY had sensors that could detect metal and electronics, but they couldn't see through Earth's biomimetic technology. Omina's ships were covered in artificial skin that felt and looked like real sea life. She watched through her periscope as an HFY patrol ship passed overhead. The aliens had no idea that 20 human submarines were swimming directly beneath them, disguised as a pod of whales. "Fire," Omina commanded. Torpedoes launched from hidden tubes along her submarine's belly. They were designed to look like large fish until the moment they struck their target. The HFY patrol ship exploded in a burst of bioluminescent fluid, its dying screams echoing through the water. "All units, the ocean is now a war zone," Admiral Kim Tae announced from his command center. "Earth's marine life has been given shelter in our deep-sea preserves. Everything else in these waters is hostile." Engineer Seo Kyung watched the battle from her underground laboratory. For years, she had been designing weapons specifically to fight aquatic aliens. The HFY thought they were dealing with simple land creatures who had recently learned to swim. They had no idea how wrong they were. "Release the steel sharks," she ordered. Across the ocean, mechanical predators emerged from hidden bases. They looked exactly like great white sharks, but they were made of metal and circuits. Their teeth were plasma cutters, and their bodies contained enough explosives to sink a battleship. The steel sharks moved in packs, hunting the alien bioships with perfect coordination. When the HFY tried to defend themselves with their own creatures, they found that Earth's artificial predators fought with a viciousness that no natural animal possessed. Dr. Park Yuna watched the battle from the command center, her heart breaking. She had hoped for peace, but the aliens had made that impossible. The deep speaker had contacted her one more time before the fighting began. "You could have shared the oceans," his voice had said in her mind. "Now we will take them by force." "You would have killed everything," Yuna had replied. "We're just defending our home." "Your home will become our grave," the alien had responded. "We have no choice but to fight." Now the oceans were full of death and destruction. Alien bioships fired living weapons at human mechs. Human submarines launched swarms of mechanical sea creatures at alien formations. The water turned red with blood from both species. Captain Li Bin found himself in direct combat with an HFY warbeast, a creature the size of a city block that looked like a cross between a squid and a dragon. Its tentacles were covered in bioelectric weapons that could fry electronics, but Li Bin's submarine had been shielded against such attacks. "Come on, you oversized jellyfish," he muttered, steering his ship in a tight spiral around the creature. "Let's see how you handle some Earth-style fighting." His submarine fired a spread of depth charges, but not at the creature. Instead, they detonated around it, creating massive pressure waves. The alien beast, used to the gentle depths of its homeworld, was stunned by the violent water currents. Li Bin pressed his advantage, ramming his reinforced submarine directly into the creature's brain center. The impact killed the beast instantly, but it also damaged his ship's hull. "Captain, we're taking on water," his engineer reported. "How long do we have?" Maybe an hour before we have to surface. Li Bin looked at his tactical display. The battle was far from over. Human forces were holding their own, but the aliens had more ships than anyone had expected, and they were learning fast. All units, this is Shark Leader, he announced. The aliens are adapting to our tactics. They're starting to use our own techniques against us. It was true. The Aquari had captured several human weapons and were already copying them. Their bioships were growing new armor that looked suspiciously like human submarine hulls. Their creatures were beginning to hunt in packs like the steel sharks. Commander, Jiang Wu discovered this firsthand when his Kraken mech was attacked by what looked like a mechanical whale. But as his sensors analyzed it, he realized it was actually an alien creature that had been modified with captured human technology. They're mixing their biotech with our machines, he reported, creating hybrids. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it finally ended, both sides had lost heavily. The Aquari test site had been destroyed, but so had 3 human underwater cities. The aliens had been driven back from the Mariana Trench, but they still controlled large sections of the Pacific. Admiral Kim Tae looked at the casualty reports with grim satisfaction. Humanity had proven they could fight in the depths. But this was only the beginning. They know we're not helpless now, he said to his staff. The real war is about to begin. In the deep ocean, both human and alien forces regrouped and prepared for the next battle. The Aquari had learned that Earth's defenders were far more dangerous than they had expected. But they were still desperate, and desperate creatures were the most dangerous of all. The war for Earth's oceans had officially begun. The war had been raging for 2 months when the Aquari revealed their true power. Captain Li Bin was leading a patrol near the Hawaiian Islands when the ocean itself turned against them. Sir, the water levels are rising fast, his navigator reported, voice tight with fear. It's not natural. Something is controlling the currents. Li Bin looked through his periscope and saw something that made his blood freeze. In the distance, a creature the size of a mountain was rising from the way deep. It looked like a massive jellyfish, but its tentacles stretched for kilometers in every direction. Where the tentacles touched the water, huge waves formed and raced toward the shore. Tide Maker, he whispered. They brought a tide maker. The creature's movements caused tsunamis that crashed into the Hawaiian coastline. Li Bin watched helplessly as waves tall as buildings swept away evacuation centers and flooded inland valleys. The Aquari weren't just fighting for the oceans anymore. They were using the sea as a weapon against the land. General Yu Dan received the emergency report while orbiting Earth in humanity's primary space station. He had been planning orbital strikes against the alien fleet, but now civilian lives were in immediate danger. How many tide makers do they have? He asked his intelligence officer. Satellite data shows at least 6 of them positioned around the globe, came the reply. They're creating coordinated tidal attacks. If they continue, they can flood most coastal cities within a week. Yudan made a quick decision. Prepare the harpoons, we're going hunting. High above Earth, humanity's orbital weapons platforms turned toward the ocean. The kinetic harpoons were massive tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons. When dropped from space, they hit with the force of a nuclear weapon but without the radiation. Target the largest tide maker, Yudan ordered. Fire when ready. The tungsten rod fell from orbit like a spear thrown by an angry god. It struck the massive creature directly in its central nerve cluster. The impact created a shockwave that could be felt on the ocean floor, and the tidemaker died instantly, its body sinking into the depths. But the Aquari retaliated quickly. Their bioships launched living missiles that climbed straight up toward the space stations. These organic rockets could change direction mid-flight and seemed to think for themselves. Incoming biomissiles, the weapons officer reported. They're tracking our heat signatures. All stations, evasive maneuvers, Yudan commanded. Launch interceptors. The battle moved into space as human fighter ships engaged the alien biomissiles. It was a strange fight, with mechanical fighters chasing living weapons through the vacuum of space. Some of the biomissiles exploded when shot, while others split into smaller creatures that continued the attack. Back on Earth, Dr. Nam Luna was working frantically in her laboratory. She was humanity's best quantum physicist, and she had been developing weapons that even she wasn't sure were safe to use. "The dimensional depth charges are ready," she reported to Admiral Kim Tae. "But I have to warn you, each one creates a small rift in spacetime. If we use too many, we might damage reality itself." "How many is too many?" the Admiral asked. "I don't know," Luna admitted. "We're in completely unknown territory here, but these weapons should be able to destroy even the largest alien bioships." Captain Ryu Jun was preparing for the most dangerous mission of his life. He and his Storm Riders were going to drop from orbit directly into the ocean, wearing powered suits that could function in both space and water. "Remember," he told his team as they checked their equipment, "these suits will protect you from the pressure at any depth, but they won't save you if the aliens catch you. Move fast, plant the charges, and get out." The Storm Riders launched. From their orbital transport in individual drop pods, they fell through the atmosphere like shooting stars, their heat shields glowing white-hot. When they hit the ocean, the pods split open and released the armored soldiers into the dark water. Ryu Jun activated his suit's propulsion system and dove toward the nearest Aquari bioship. The alien vessel was the size of a city, its bioluminescent hull pulsing with strange patterns. He had to find its brain center and plant a quantum bomb before the ship's immune system could detect him. Swimming alongside the bioship's hull, Ryu Jun felt like a tiny fish next to a whale. The alien ship's skin was warm and seemed to react to his presence, growing small tentacles that tried to grab him. He used his suit's cutting laser to burn through the reaching appendages. "Storm Rider 1 to base," he whispered into his radio. "I'm inside the target. Beginning search for neural center." The inside of the bioship was like swimming through a living cathedral. Walls of flesh pulsed around him, and bioluminescent. Veins carried information instead of blood. Strange creatures that looked like living computers floated in the corridors, tending to the ship's systems. Ryu Jun moved carefully through the organic passages, following his suit's scanner toward the strongest neural activity. He could feel the ship becoming aware of his presence. Antibody creatures began hunting for him, drawn by his human scent. Meanwhile, Dr. Park Yuna was having another conversation with the deep speaker. The alien leader had contacted her directly, his mental voice full of pain and desperation. "Your kind fights with such violence," the deep speaker said. "We did not expect this. We thought you were like the peaceful creatures that swim in your seas." "We are peaceful when we're not threatened," Yuna replied. "But you're trying to kill our world. What did you expect?" "We expected you to understand. We are dying. Our children float dead in poisoned waters. We have no choice but to take what we need." Yuna felt sympathy for the aliens, but she couldn't let that change her duty. "There has to be another way, something that doesn't require destroying our oceans." "If there is, we do not see it," the deep speaker responded. "We will continue fighting until we have new seas to call home, or until we join our children in death." The conversation was cut short when Captain Ryu Jun's quantum bomb detonated inside the bioship. The explosion didn't create fire or shrapnel. Instead, it tore a hole in space itself, creating a brief implosion that crushed the massive vessel from the inside out. The destruction was so complete that nothing remained except a whirlpool where the bioship had been. But the quantum rift left behind was visible as a shimmering distortion in the water, and it was slowly growing larger. "Dr. Luna," Admiral Kim Tae called urgently. "The quantum bomb worked, but it's left some kind of hole in space. Is that supposed to happen?" "No," Luna replied, her voice tight with worry. "The rift should have closed immediately. Something is keeping it open. If it continues to grow, it could swallow the entire ocean." The war had taken a dangerous turn. Humanity's most powerful weapons were as dangerous to Earth as they were to the aliens. But the Aquari weren't backing down. If anything, they were becoming more desperate and more dangerous. Commander Jiang Wu discovered this when his Kraken unit encountered a new type of alien creature. It looked like a mechanical squid, but Jiang Wu's sensors showed it was actually a hybrid of alien biotechnology and captured human machines. "They're learning too fast," he reported. "This thing has our armor and their organic weapons. It's adapting to our attacks in real time." The hybrid creature wrapped its tentacles around Jiang Wu's mech and began trying to inject something into The machine systems. Jiang Wu realized with horror that the aliens were trying to infect his mech with their biotechnology, turning it into another hybrid weapon. He activated his mech's self-defense system, sending an electrical surge through the hull. The hybrid creature released him, but not before some of its biomatter had gotten into his mech's systems. Jiang Wu could see organic growths beginning to spread across his control panels. "All units, be advised," he announced. "The aliens can convert our technology. Don't let them get close enough to inject you with their biomatter." The Battle of the Arctic was the largest naval engagement in human history. Both sides committed their most powerful forces to control the polar region. The Aquari wanted the cold waters for their breeding grounds, while humanity needed to prevent them from melting the ice caps with their warming organisms. Admiral Kim Tae personally commanded the human fleet from his flagship, a massive submarine carrier that could launch dozens of smaller subs. Captain Omina led the stealth squadrons while Captain Li Bin coordinated the surface attacks. The aliens brought everything they had: tidemakers, bioships, hybrid creatures, and something new that nobody had seen before. It was a creature that looked like a living iceberg, but it could move through the water faster than any ship. "What is that thing?" Li Bin asked, staring at the massive creature through his periscope. "Unknown bioform," his scanner operator replied. "It's generating massive amounts of heat. Sir, if that thing reaches the ice shelf, it could melt the entire Arctic in hours." "All units priority target," Admiral Kim Tae announced. "Stop that creature at all costs." The battle raged above and below the Arctic ice. Nuclear depth charges detonated in flashes of light that could be seen through the thick ice. The explosions cracked the ice sheet and sent huge chunks floating free, but they also stopped the alien creature from reaching the main ice shelf. When the battle ended 12 hours later, the Arctic Ocean was full of debris from both fleets. The water was red with the blood of humans and aliens alike. 6 months of war had changed everything. The oceans that had once been blue and beautiful were now dark with pollution and filled with the wreckage of countless battles. Dr. Shin Ara worked in her laboratory deep beneath the Pacific, studying pieces of alien biotechnology that her teams had recovered from destroyed Aquari ships. "This is incredible," she whispered to her assistant as she examined a sample under her microscope. "Their technology isn't just alive. It's intelligent. Each piece can think and adapt on its own." The alien biomatter she was studying had been trying to escape its containment for weeks. It seemed to learn from each failed attempt, finding new ways to try to break free. But today, Shinara had made a discovery that changed everything. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a section of the organism. "These cells aren't just processing information. They're cleaning the water around them. The alien biomatter is actually purifying contaminated samples." Her assistant leaned closer. "You mean they can clean up pollution?" "More than that," Shin Ara said excitedly. "I think they can clean up any contamination, including the toxins they've been spreading in our oceans. But there's something strange. When they use this cleaning ability, the organisms die much faster than normal." She ran more tests and made an even more shocking discovery. The Aquari leadership has been lying to their own people. Their species can purify water naturally, but it costs them years of their lifespan. Instead of making the sacrifice, they've chosen to steal our oceans. Colonel Bei Hoon led his abyss walkers into the deepest parts of the ocean, where even sunlight had never reached. His team wore the most advanced underwater suits humanity had ever built, allowing them to survive at depths that would crush submarines. "Target is 2 kilometers below," he reported into his radio. "Beginning descent into the Aquari deep base." The alien stronghold was built into an underwater mountain, its bioluminescent walls glowing like a small city in the darkness. Bei-hoon and his team swam carefully between the organic sensors, using their suits' camouflage to look like pieces of floating debris. Inside the base, Bei-hoon discovered something that made his heart sink. Massive chambers filled with young Aquari, thousands of them swimming in Earth's converted seawater. The aliens weren't just planning to live in Earth's oceans. They were planning to fill them with their offspring. "Command, this is Abyss Leader," he whispered into his radio. The aliens have turned this place into a nursery. There are children here, thousands of them. The discovery changed everything. This wasn't just a war between two species fighting for resources. The Aquari were trying to turn Earth into their new homeworld, with humanity pushed out entirely. Captain No Sung commanded the submarine carrier Leviathan, the largest warship humanity had ever built. It could carry 50 smaller submarines and launch them like a hive, releasing its defenders. But today, his mission was more important than any battle. Sonar contact, his operator reported. It's massive, bigger than anything we've seen before. Through his periscope, No Sung saw something that defied belief. Deep beneath the Pacific, the Aquari had built a structure that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. It looked like a living coral reef, but it pulsed with unnatural rhythms and glowed with alien energy. "What is that thing?" his executive officer asked. "It's a biofactory," No Sung realized with growing horror. "They're building something that will convert our entire ocean system. If that thing activates fully, every drop of seawater on Earth will become toxic to our marine life." Dr. Park Yuna stood on the bridge of a human research vessel, watching the ocean around them change. The water was no longer the familiar blue of Earth's seas. It was becoming something alien, something that hurt to look at for too long. The deep speaker contacted her one final time, his mental voice weary with months of war. "Dr. Yuna," the alien leader said, "you have seen what we are building. Soon this world's oceans will become part of us. Not just our home, but our body. We will become one with the sea itself. You're going to turn the entire ocean into a living creature," Yuna said, understanding at last. "With yourselves as its brain." "Yes," the deep speaker replied. "Your people will still have the land, but the sea will think with our thoughts, feel with our senses. We will be immortal, and our children will swim forever in waters that obey our will." Yuna felt sick. "And every human who depends on the ocean for food or water or transportation will die. That is unfortunate, but necessary. We cannot share this world. There is not room for both our species to thrive." The conversation was interrupted when Captain Lee Bin's emergency signal reached all human forces. He had discovered the biofactory's location and was preparing to attack it with everything he had. "All units, this is Shark Leader," Lee Bin announced. "We found their main construction. It's the size of a city and it's almost finished. If we don't stop it now, we lose everything." Admiral Kim Tae made the hardest decision of his life. "Prepare Operation Tempest. All remaining forces converge on the Pacific Biofactory. This is our last chance." Operation Tempest was humanity's final plan, the one they had hoped never to use. It involved deploying every remaining weapon, including the dangerous quantum bombs that could tear holes in reality itself. The plan would either save Earth's oceans or destroy them completely. Captain Ryujun prepared his storm riders for their most dangerous mission yet. They would have to penetrate the heart of the biofactory and plant enough quantum bombs to destroy it from the inside. The factory's own defenses would make it nearly impossible to approach from the outside. "Remember," Ryujun told his team, "this thing is alive. It will try to convert us into part of itself. Stay together, move fast, and don't let it touch your suits." Commander Jiang Wu's remaining Kraken mechs would provide escort for the storm riders. Half of his unit had been lost in the previous battles, and the survivors were all showing signs of alien biocontamination from their fights with the hybrid creatures. "Kraken units, form up," Jiang Wu ordered. "Our job is to get the storm riders to the target. After that, we hold the line no matter what." Dr. Nam Luna worked frantically to prepare the quantum weapons for their final use. Each bomb was more powerful than the last, but they were also more unstable. She wasn't sure the fabric of space-time could handle what they were about to do. "These weapons will destroy the biofactory," she reported to Admiral Kim Tae. "But the quantum rifts they create might not close properly. We could end up with permanent holes in space above our oceans. Better holes in space than oceans full of alien poison," the Admiral replied grimly. The final battle began at dawn. Human forces from around the world converged on the biofactory. Submarines, mechs, orbital platforms, and individual soldiers all moved toward the same target. The Aquari defended their creation with everything they had. The biofactory itself came alive, growing weapons and defenders from its own structure. Massive tentacles reached up from the deep to swat at attacking submarines. Living missiles launched themselves from the factory's surface. Captain Omina led her stealth squadron through the chaos, using their whale-like camouflage to get close to the factory's base. Her submarines had been modified to carry the largest quantum bombs, the ones that would hopefully destroy the factory's core. "Ghost Squadron, begin attack run," she announced. "Remember, we only get one shot at this." The battle raged across the entire Pacific. In space, General Yu Dan coordinated orbital strikes while fighting off alien biomissiles. On the surface, Captain Li Bin's ships fought a running battle with hybrid creatures. Deep below, Colonel Bei Hoon's abyss walkers tried to rescue human prisoners while avoiding the factory's immune system. But it was Dr. Shinara's discovery that would ultimately matter most. She had found a way to weaponize the Aquari's own biology against them. If she could get close enough to the biofactory, she could release a modified version of their purification organisms. "It will force them to clean up their own contamination," she explained to Admiral Kim Tae. "But the process will kill the organisms, including the biofactory itself." "How close do you need to get?" the Admiral asked. "I need to inject it directly into the factory's central nervous system. It's a suicide mission." Admiral Kim Tae looked at the young scientist with respect. "Dr. Shin, you've already done enough. Let the soldiers handle this part." "No," Shinara said firmly. "This is my discovery, my responsibility. Besides, I'm the only one who knows exactly where to inject it for maximum effect." As the battle reached its peak, forces from both sides prepared for the final confrontation that would decide the fate of Earth's oceans. The war had already cost millions of lives and changed the planet forever. Soon, it would finally end, one way or another. Operation Tempest began with light falling from the sky. General Yu Dan's orbital platforms fired everything they had at the biofactory, turning night into day with the brilliance of their weapons. Tungsten harpoons fell like deadly rain, punching holes through the factory's living armor. Captain Li Bin watched the bombardment from his damaged submarine as it limped toward the target. Half his crew was dead and his ship was held together by emergency patches, but he refused to retreat. "Sir, we're taking on water faster than the pumps can handle," his engineer reported. "How long do we have?" Li Bin asked. "Maybe 20 minutes, before we have to surface." Li Bin looked at his tactical display. The biofactory was still kilometers away, and it was defended by more alien creatures than he had ever seen in one place. 20 minutes wouldn't be enough time to reach the target and escape. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's intercom. "We're going in for a final attack. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship can do so now." Nobody moved from their stations. Commander Jiang Wu's Kraken mech unit was the first to reach the biofactory's outer defenses. The massive structure rose from the ocean floor like a living mountain, its surface crawling with defensive organisms. Tentacles the size of subway trains whipped through the water, trying to grab the approaching mechs. "Kraken 1 to all units," Jiang Wu announced. "We're going to punch a hole in their defenses. Storm Riders, be ready to follow us through." His mech extended its arms like a real octopus, but instead of flesh, they were made of advanced alloys and plasma weapons. Jiang Wu fired at the factory's surface, burning through layers of living armor to create an opening. An alien defender, something that looked like a mechanical whale with bioelectric weapons, rammed into his mech from the side. Jiang Wu felt his machine shudder under the impact, and warning lights flashed across his control panel. "Hull breach in Section 4, his co-pilot reported. "The alien biomatter is trying to get inside our systems again." Jiang Wu could see organic growths spreading across his control panels, trying to convert his mech into another hybrid weapon. He activated the emergency purge system, flooding his own cockpit with radiation that would kill the alien organisms, but also damage his equipment. "Kraken 1 to Storm Riders," he called out as his mech began to malfunction. "Opening created. Go now before it heals itself." Captain Ryu Jun led his Storm Riders through the hole in the factory's defenses. Their powered suits propelled them through the water like human torpedoes, each one carrying enough quantum explosives to level a city block. Inside the biofactory, Ryujun felt like he was swimming through the digestive system of some enormous creature. The walls pulsed around them and the water itself seemed to be alive. Strange currents tried to push them away from their target. "Stay together," Ryujun ordered his team. "The factory knows we're here. It's trying to flush us out." Dr. Shin Ara followed the Storm Riders into the factory, carrying a single injection device filled with her modified purification organisms. She wasn't a soldier, but her underwater suit was just as advanced as theirs. She had to reach the factory's brain center before the warriors set off their explosives. The biofactory's immune system activated as the humans penetrated deeper into its structure. Antibody creatures that looked like living white blood cells began hunting for the intruders. These defenders were the size of cars and moved through the organic corridors like sharks through water. "Contact front," one of the Storm Riders reported. "Multiple hostiles approaching." The battle inside the factory was unlike anything the humans had experienced. They fought in 3 dimensions through corridors that changed shape around them, against enemies that could split into smaller pieces when damaged. Ryujun's team used their suit weapons to burn through waves of defenders. But for every creature they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Meanwhile, Captain Omina's stealth squadron reached the factory's base. Her submarines looked like a pod of whales as they approached the structure's foundation, but they were actually carrying the largest quantum bombs ever built. "Ghost Squadron, prepare for synchronized detonation," she announced. "We need to hit all the support pillars." At the same time, the Deep Mother herself emerged from the deepest part of the biofactory. She was the oldest and largest of the Aquari, a creature so massive that she could barely move through the water. Her body was the size of a small island, and her mind contained the memories of her entire species. Dr. Park Yuna felt the alien leader's presence like a weight pressing down on her thoughts. The Deep Mother's mental voice was filled with ancient sadness and desperate rage. "Landwalker," the Deep Mother said, "you have brought death to my children. You have poisoned our new home with your violence." "You tried to steal our world," Yuna replied, struggling to maintain her mental defenses against the creature's overwhelming presence. "We're just defending ourselves." "We are dying," the Deep Mother responded. "Our young float dead in poisoned seas. We had no choice but to take what we needed to survive." "There was always a choice," Yuna said. "You could have asked for help instead of trying to take everything." The Deep Mother's anger was like a tsunami in Yuna's mind. "Your species knows only violence. You would never have helped us willingly." Inside the biofactory, Dr. Shin Ara finally reached the central nervous system. It was a chamber filled with glowing neural tissue that pulsed with the thoughts of the entire structure. She could feel the factory's awareness focusing on her as she prepared her injection device. "Dr. Shin to all units," she announced. "I'm at the target, beginning injection sequence." The factory's defenses converged on her position. Organic weapons grew from the walls, firing bioelectric bolts that her suit barely deflected. Antibody creatures poured into the chamber from every opening. Shin Ara fought her way to the central nerve cluster, using her suit's cutting tools to burn through the defenders. When she finally reached the target, she pressed her injection device against the glowing tissue and activated it. The modified purification organisms spread through the factory's nervous system like wildfire. The structure began to scream, a sound that carried through the water and could be heard for hundreds of kilometers. As the organisms forced the factory to purify its own toxic systems, the biostructure began to die. Captain Ryujun felt the factory shuddering around him as its life systems failed. "All Storm Riders, plant your charges and get out. This place is coming apart." But as the humans tried to escape, the factory's death throes created powerful currents that trapped them inside. The quantum bombs were armed and counting down, but the team couldn't reach the exit. Captain Li Bin's submarine finally reached the battle zone, its hull cracked and taking on water with every passing second. He saw the Storm Riders trapped inside the dying factory and made an instant decision. "All power to ramming speed," he ordered. "We're going to punch a hole in that thing." His submarine, moving at its maximum speed, crashed into the factory's outer wall. The impact tore a massive opening in the structure but also broke Li Bin's ship in half. As water flooded his submarine, he managed to create an escape route for the storm riders. "This is Shark Leader," he announced with his last transmission. "The ocean is yours now. Keep it safe." The quantum bombs detonated in sequence, creating a series of dimensional rifts inside the biofactory. The massive structure collapsed in on itself, imploding like a deflating balloon. But the quantum rifts began to expand, threatening to create permanent holes in space above the Pacific. It was then that the Deep Mother made her final choice. Using her enormous biomass, she swam directly into the expanding rifts. Her body absorbed the dimensional energy, sealing the holes in space but destroying herself in the process. As the ancient Aquari leader died, her final thoughts reached Dr. Park Yuna across the battlefield. "Perhaps," the Deep Mother's fading voice said, "your species and mine are not so different after all. We both fight to protect what we love." The destruction of the biofactory marked the end of the war. With their leader dead and their terraforming weapon destroyed, the surviving Aquari had no choice but to surrender. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Earth's oceans were contaminated with alien toxins and littered with the wreckage of countless battles. Dr. Shin Ara's discovery became the key to peace. The young Aquari, led by individuals who had never wanted the war, activated their species' natural purification abilities. They began cleaning the contaminated water, even though it cost them decades of their lifespan. Admiral Kim Tae oversaw the peace negotiations from his underwater command center. The final treaty gave the Aquari designated areas in the deepest ocean trenches, where they could live without interfering with human activities. In exchange, they would use their purification abilities to help heal the damaged oceans. "It's not perfect," he told Dr. Park Yuna as they watched Aquari cleanup crews working alongside human environmental teams. "But it's better than extinction for either species." Captain Omina retired from active duty to help establish the new underwater monitoring stations that would ensure both species kept their agreements. Commander Jiang Wu became an instructor, teaching new pilots how to operate the hybrid human Aquari technology that had emerged from the war.